Today, we are diving into a really intense situation down in Fulton County, Georgia. It's this convergence of political scrutiny and some serious questions about financial accountability.
Exactly. We're talking about millions of taxpayer dollars, money that was supposed to go to, critical things like preventing gang violence and solving sexual assault cases.
And instead, there are allegations that it was spent on high-cost travel, conferences, and even office swag.
And this deep dive is really all about the facts, not the political noise around it. We've got a whole stack of sources here: sworn whistleblower testimony, internal financial notes, even federal audit findings.
We also have formal investigative requests from the Department of Justice and multiple congressional committees.
Right. So our mission here is to just cut through all that noise and show you the profound inconsistencies in how these federal grants were apparently being handled.
And it's an issue that really goes beyond local politics, doesn't it? It's about the integrity of federal grant funding everywhere.
It really is.
Okay, so let's start with the money, because the numbers here are what really make this story so critical. We're focused on two main grants. First, there's the Gang Prevention Grant.
That's from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, or OJJDP.
And it was for a lot of money, nearly $489,000, almost $500,000.
And it was earmarked specifically to build a youth empowerment center, a place to, run intervention programs for kids aged 12 to 17 to keep them out of gangs.
And the key point is that center, which was the entire purpose of the grant.
It still hasn't been built.
Not built. Then there's the second grant, which is just as vital, the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, or SAKI.
This one was for $2 million federally to address the huge backlog of unsubmitted rape kits. I mean, the goal is to identify attackers and get justice for victims, a critical public safety function.
Absolutely. And with that SAKI grant, this is where you see the first huge red flag. Fulton County's own spending data from 2020 to 2023, it paints a pretty stark picture.
It does. The sources show that roughly 49% of that $2 million was allegedly spent on travel and conference expenses.
49%, so almost half. We're talking hotels, airfare, catering.
All of it. And then you compare that to what the money was actually for.
Right.
During that same time, only about 28% of the grant went toward forensic and DNA testing, the actual work that solves these crimes.
So let me get this straight. The federal government sends millions to test rape kits, but county data suggests nearly half the money went to travel.
That's what the data indicates. And it gets even more extreme if you just look at the year 2023.
What happens then?
In 2023 alone, that travel percentage just exploded. It went up to 98% of the SAKI grant money spent that year.
98%. That's unbelievable. It raises a pretty unavoidable question, right? If 98 cents of every grant dollar is going to airfare, how much actual crime solving is getting done?
It says a lot about the priorities in that office, doesn't it? When the main result of an anti-crime grant is just flying people around, you've completely failed the mission of the funding. And you failed the taxpayers.
That really sets the scene for what we found when we dug into the specific allegations, starting with that gang prevention grant. The goal was saving kids, but the money might have been eyed for something else entirely.
Exactly right. We have sworn testimony from Amanda Timpson, who was a former staffer there. She claimed a former campaign aide, a man named Michael Cuffey, laid out a plan to spend that $488,000 on things that were explicitly forbidden by the grant rules.
So not just a simple mistake. This was allegedly a plan to spend on prohibited items.
That's the allegation.
And what were those items?
Computers, travel, and get this, swag.
Swag? You mean like promotional stuff?
Yep. Branded pins, coffee mugs, T-shirts, all allegedly for the DA's office rebranding.
And there was a nickname for this plan, wasn't there?
There was. According to the testimony, some staff internally referred to this plan as Madame's Vision, which was a reference to Mrs. Willis.
Wow, Madame's Vision. If that's true, it really captures a potential shift in focus, right? From a public safety mission to, building a personal brand.
All funded with $500,000 meant to keep kids out of gangs. And it's not just internal talk. The external evidence started flagging financial problems, too.
You're talking about the Department of Justice investigation.
I am. The DOJ found, in their words, inconsistencies in Fulton County's reporting on this grant. And one of those inconsistencies is just, it's bizarre.
What did they find?
They flagged a missing $88,900. Fulton County's records apparently show that money was transferred from the gang prevention grant to an organization in Alabama called the Offender Alumni Association.
Wait, Alabama. Why would a Georgia youth gang program send nearly $90,000 to an organization in another state?
That's the question everyone's asking. And it gets stranger. When investigators actually called the administrative director of that Alabama group, she said, and this is a quote, she had no idea where that information is coming from.
So the money is basically untraceable on the other end.
It seems to be. And that's a huge breakdown in financial controls, whether it was a clerical error or, something else. That's a lot of money meant for at-risk kids.
And this pattern seems to be reinforced by what you found with the SAKI grant data.
It absolutely is. I mean, we talked about travel spiking to almost 50% overall and then 98% in 2023. These grants are not slush funds. They are highly specific.
They have a clear purpose.
A life-altering purpose. Solving cold case sexual assaults. When the majority of that money is instead subsidizing conferences, it directly impacts public safety. That's money that could have processed thousands of kids.
When federal tax dollars are so clearly allocated for fighting crime, but they end up paying for mugs and plane tickets, it just demands a closer look at accountability.
And that's exactly what led one employee to speak up.
So this brings us to the next part of this story, the whistleblower, the human element in all of this.
Right. We're talking again about Amanda Timpson, the former juvenile diversion programs manager. She kept raising objections about this planned spending in weekly staff meetings.
She didn't stay quiet.
Not at all. She testified that she also emailed Mrs. Willis directly about her concerns, but she believes those emails were just ignored.
So this is like a classic whistleblower scenario. She's acting as that human safety check, trying to make sure federal money is used legally.
Exactly. But it seems her efforts were met with, well, swift and pretty severe retaliation.
Tell us what she testified happened.
She said that in a meeting with Mrs. Willis on July 26, 2021, she was cut off mid-sentence and demoted, quote, effective immediately.
Demoted from her manager role to what?
To an entry-level file clerk.
Yeah.
That kind of sudden, drastic demotion is often, a sign of punitive action.
And it didn't stop there, did it?
No. Timpson was eventually terminated. And in a really striking move, she was escorted out of the building by 7 armed investigators.
7? That seems excessive.
It sends a message. She also claims her demotion and firing were followed by slanderous statements from the DA's office about her job performance, which made it hard for her to find another job.
And she maintains her performance was never an issue until she started questioning the grant spending.
That's her claim. She said the only objections to her performance were about her refusal to go along with the alleged misuse of funds.
And she drew a direct line from her own case to some of the other issues plaguing the office.
She did. She said her case and the situation with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade were, in her words, very similar. She broke it down as ethical violations, abuse of power, and the misuse of county, state, and federal funds.
That's a powerful connection to make, suggesting a systemic issue.
It really is. But we also have to look at the legal hurdles someone like Timpson faces. Georgia is an at-will employment state.
What does that mean for someone listening in simple terms?
It means that unless a very specific law protects you, you can be fired for almost any reason, even, in some cases, for doing the morally right thing, like reporting the potential misuse of federal funds.
So there isn't a strong general public policy protection for whistleblowers in her position.
It's very weak. And that lack of robust protection is a major flaw in the system. It creates a chilling effect. Who would want to speak up if they know they can be fired and have little legal recourse?
And it's that vulnerability, really, that helps explain why federal and state investigators have had to step in. This is much bigger than just an internal HR issue now.
Absolutely. The oversight is coming from all directions.
Okay, let's talk about that scrutiny, because the pressure on the Fulton DA's office now is immense from both the state and federal levels.
That's right. Federally, you have significant pressure coming from Congress. U.S. Senators Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, they are actively investigating this.
What are they looking for?
They formally requested comprehensive documents on both the gang prevention and their SAKI grants. They're trying to follow the money.
And it's not just the Senate, right?
No, the House is involved too. The Judiciary Committee Chairman, Jim Jordan, is also conducting an investigation. He even issued a subpoena for records.
And how has the DA's office responded to that?
Well, Jordan has threatened contempt proceedings, claiming that the office only provided a narrow set of documents that, he says, basically dodged the core allegations from the whistleblower.
So it sounds like Congress is hitting a wall trying to get answers.
It suggests there's some significant resistance to that oversight, yes. Meanwhile, you have action at the state level.
A Georgia Senate special committee.
Exactly. It's GOP-controlled. And they're holding these very public hearings into all the allegations of impropriety. The committee chairman pointed out that previous hearings already revealed, in his words, very little control and oversight of Mrs. Willis's entire $36 million annual budget.
$36 million. That's a huge budget to have very little control over.
It is. And this is where we can really connect the dots between the individual stories, the swag spending, and a proven institutional failure of financial controls.
And we know this because of an official audit.
Precisely. The Fulton County Single Audit Report for fiscal year 2022. This isn't a political document. It's a dry accounting report, and it's crucial.
What did it find?
It identified a material weakness in internal control, specifically regarding what's called subrecipient monitoring. Now, a material weakness is the most severe finding an auditor can make about internal controls. It's a very big deal.
And what does that mean, subrecipient monitoring?
It means the county failed to properly monitor the organizations that were receiving federal pass-through funding. The audit explicitly states management failed to properly monitor recipients of over $19 million.
$19 million.
So when you have a systemic failure, that massive, proven by your own auditors, it creates the perfect environment for the kinds of problems we're talking about. The alleged misdirection of SAKI or gang prevention funds becomes almost, inevitable. The system itself was already broken.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for the public, no matter what your politics are?
I mean, the sources just clearly document these incredibly serious allegations. We're talking millions of dollars for critical public safety, gang violence, sexual assault cases that were allegedly misdirected.
Towards promotional items, travel, and these untraceable transfers.
It's really a textbook example of how government accountability just falls apart. It happens when two things break at the same time. First, your accounting controls, which the audit proved happened with that material weakness finding.
And the second thing,
the human safeguards. The whistleblowers, like Amanda Timpson, who try to raise the alarm but are then actively retaliated against and potentially silenced. You just can't trust the mission if the people managing public money are allegedly using it for their own rebranding instead of for solving crimes.
it feels like a profound breakdown of public trust that really demands clear answers. We know these federal grants are essential. They're supposed to solve huge local problems.
They are.
So if the government can't even ensure that money meant for fighting crime actually gets used for fighting crime, and instead it maybe funds travel and office swag, what kind of accountability can citizens really demand to protect public spending? That seems to be the core question here for every single jurisdiction that relies on federal dollars.